Well, first of all, um, we can't help noticing, and it's quite relevant, that the brain model, the whole revolution we're living in of brain research, beginning to understand, we will look back on these as early crude days, but we're beginning to understand something about how the brain works and how the complexity of the brain works and how we educate and support people to have a robust integrated brain network so they become resistant to panic, they become flexible, they become resilient to stress. We know how we can do that. We know what that brain looks like and how you train for it. That whole model is the Gestalt model. It is Kurt Lewin's early Gestalt model applied to the brain. The brain model of neuroscience today is that we constantly approach new situations. We constantly resolve or assimilate them to old patterns or make new patterns, and that's what we do all day long. We're solving problems. That's how the brain works. It's doing with more, and again, I keep saying with more or less support. So you get a different, what you get with support and an integrated brain circuitry that activates, when the brain circuitry is integrated, you activate many centers at the same time. And every time you have a problem for me, I'm also looking at the expression on your face. I'm also aware of the emotions in my body. I also am having empathic centers working, which are supporting so there's all kinds of things going on, as well as memory and analytic problem solving. And that's all going on at once, because in a relaxed brain, you get multiple connections, and I respond creatively. But if I have the opposite, it's like a short circuit to all that, and I only have one pathway I go to because of the alarm signal. So that's the same story over and over. That's the Gestalt brain model now being validated. You can pick up the scientific journal or the popular newspaper online, whatever, every day, and read more brain findings that validate the Gestalt brain model from that was totally radically different from the behaviorist or the psychodynamic model of the brain, the model of human behavior. So that's where you find Gestalt in the world today, is in the entire world of neuroscience, which is taking over, is the revolution in psychology. And it supports, for instance, confluent education, integral education, which is what Esalen Institute, if you're familiar with that at all, has stood for 60 years. That you must educate all aspects of the person. These were insights coming out of Eastern teaching before they were validated by contemporary brain science. Today we know that is true. When you develop the body awareness and the social awareness and the spiritual capacity, which is to go to that fertile void, and along with the intellectual, when you have all these things developing together, you get a resilient person, a creative person, who then can contribute much more to their own life and to society. So it's exactly the education we need for today, is Gestalt integral education. And that's being proved more and more. So it's a very exciting time for neuroscience and for Gestalt, which have converged. So that's one kind of answer. So at the same time, I don't know exactly what the scene is like in Central Europe now, but certainly in Western Europe and in the United States and in much of Asia, Meditation and yoga and mindfulness and all these things are everywhere. Esalen used to be a lonely pioneer for these things 50 years ago, 40 years ago. It was woo-woo. It was far out there. It's what, bored actors and actresses would go to Esalen and do some yoga. But it's not for everybody. Now it's on every corner. You go to New York City, on any corner, there's more than one yoga studio. You just look up, not just one on every corner. That's the cliche.